He kicked her out for her skin. 7 years later, the Mafia boss saw her with a child. There is a particular kind of silence that comes right before your world splits in two. I know that silence well. I have lived in its aftermath for 7 years. Tonight it finds me again, here, in this gilded room full of people who spend more on a glass of champagne than I earn in a week teaching art to kids who actually want to learn something real. The Met Gala charity event. Neutral ground, they say, a place where wolves polish their teeth and call it philanthropy. I am not supposed to be here. I was invited because Claudette Harris, one of my most loyal mural clients, bought a table and insisted I come. "You deserve a night out, Sarah. Let me do this for you." And I said yes, which is either the bravest or the most foolish thing I have done since I chose to keep my son. Alex is at home with Mrs. Ruiz from downstairs. I kissed his forehead before I left, breathed in the shampoo and sleep smell of him, and told him I would be back before he woke up. But then I brought him here tonight, this week's event, an early gala preview dinner, a smaller affair, because Claudette said it was child-friendly, casual, and I had no one to watch him on such short notice. He is in his little rented tuxedo, slightly too big in the shoulders, standing beside me with the serious dignity of a 6-year-old who has decided tonight is important. Julian Hale, my quiet neighbor and occasional protector, says something dry about the flower arrangement, and I laugh, a real laugh, not the polished kind I have had to practice for rooms like this one, and the sound of it feels like something reclaimed. Then the crowd shifts. Not dramatically, not like in the movies where the sea parts and light pours through. Just a subtle redistribution of bodies, the way people unconsciously give space to something dangerous without understanding why they are doing it. I feel it before I see it. The back of my neck goes cold. My champagne glass grows heavy in my hand. 7 years of survival instinct comes screaming awake like a fire alarm in a silent building. And then I see him. Dante Bellamorte. He has not changed the way I needed him to. I needed him to be diminished, older, hollowed. I needed the years to have taken something from him the way they took something from me. But he stands in the entrance of this glittering hall like a man who has never once questioned his right to occupy space. Black tuxedo, silver cufflinks catching the chandelier light, jaw set like carved stone. The gray at his temples is new. It makes him look infuriatingly like authority itself. His eyes sweep the room the way they always did, cataloging exits, measuring threats, owning the air. And then those slate-gray eyes, the exact color of wet asphalt, the exact color of my son's eyes, find mine. Stop. I watch the moment register, watch something crap open in the controlled perfection of his face. Watch his gaze drop almost involuntarily to the small figure standing beside me. Alex tugs my hand. "Mom, who's that man? He's staring." 7 years, 36 months of therapy, 800 and something days of convincing myself I had outrun this moment, and it arrives anyway, quiet as a blade between the ribs. I look down at my son, his father's jaw, my mother's mouth, his own beautiful, terrifying eyes, and I make a choice in the span of a breath. I will not run. I am done running from Dante Bellamorte. If you're already hooked, darling, a quiet subscribe keeps the darkness coming.
Let me tell you what I looked like the last time Dante Bellamorte saw me. 24 years old. Standing in the white marble foyer of his penthouse on a Tuesday night in October. rain hammering the floor-to-ceiling glass behind me, like the sky itself had something to say. I was wearing one of his shirts over my clothes because I had spilled coffee on my blouse in the kitchen earlier, and he had wordlessly handed me the shirt without looking up from his phone, and I had taken it like it meant something. I was holding a pencil drawing I had made of the ultrasound image because I could not afford the printed copy. I had drawn every detail carefully, the way I draw everything, with love, with intention, with the belief that if you pay close enough attention to something, it will become real in the truest sense. I said, "I'm pregnant, Dante." The words came out steady. I had rehearsed them. I had not rehearsed what would come next. He set down his glass of Barolo slowly, stood up from the chair by the window, crossed the room and looked at me the way he looked at everything, with that complete, unreadable assessment that had once made me feel truly seen, and now made me feel like a problem being calculated. He took the drawing from my hands, studied it for a long moment, put it face down on the console table. "Your skin was beautiful in the dark, Sarah, but daylight belongs to my blood." I remember the exact sound of those words, the complete flatness of them. No anger, no cruelty for cruelty's sake, just the cold arithmetic of a man doing what he believed necessary. That was the worst part. He was not even cruel to me. He was simply efficient. "Take the money on the table and disappear. If you ever speak my name again, the child won't live long enough to see kindergarten." There was an envelope on the console table beside the face-down drawing. I did not touch it. I took back my sketch with both hands, pressed it to my chest, and walked out into the rain in his shirt. I left the shirt in a dumpster 3 blocks away. I kept the drawing. That is the version of me that disappeared. The girl who loved him in the dark and believed, stupidly, magnificently, with the full force of a heart that had never learned to protect itself, that the man who traced her spine like she was precious might actually see her as such in the morning. The version of me standing in this gilded room tonight is something else entirely. I rebuilt slowly, methodically, the way you repair a cracked fresco, not by covering the damage, but by stabilizing it, understanding the structure, and then choosing what to restore and what to leave as evidence of survival. Queens was not easy. Single motherhood was not easy. But I had my art. I had Mrs. Ruiz. I had Alex, who came into the world on a cold February morning, screaming his disapproval of everything, and then looked up at me with his father's eyes and turned me completely inside out with love. I painted murals for Tribeca lofts, Upper East Side nurseries, restaurant walls in Astoria. I taught after-school art classes at the community center on Thursdays. My work got noticed. A magazine feature, 2 gallery invitations, a client list that grew from word of mouth and the stubborn quality of everything I put my hands on. I never told Alex about his father. I told him his father was gone. That was technically true. I told him families come in many shapes, and ours was a strong one. I told him power is earned, not inherited. I told him kindness is armor. He believed me. He is 6. He still believes almost everything I say. I am terrified of the day that changes. And now the man who made all of this necessary is crossing this room toward me with the certainty of someone who has never once been told he could not have what he wanted. I straighten my spine, lift my chin, feel Julian shift subtly closer on my left side. Dante stops 3 feet away, close enough that I can smell him. Cedar and dark amber, and something that has no name and still, after 7 years, lives in the oldest part of my memory. "Sarah." His voice is low, velvet dragged across gravel. We need to talk. I look at him for exactly 1 second before I answer, long enough to make sure my voice will come out right. The last time you spoke to me, Dante Bellamorte, you told me my skin didn't belong in your daylight. My son and I have been living in it just fine without you. Something moves behind his eyes. Not guilt, exactly. Dante Bellamorte is not built for guilt. Something raw. Something that looks almost like a man seeing a wound he made and understanding, for the first time, its actual depth. Alex looks up at the tall stranger beside his mother and says the question I have dreaded for 6 years. Mom, why does he have my eyes? Tell me, when Alex asked, why does he have my eyes, what did you feel in that moment? Drop a lift if you felt that in your chest. The thing about Dante Bellamorte is that he has never in his life looked small. He looks small right now. Not diminished, he is still the largest presence in the room, still the kind of man other men unconsciously defer to without knowing why. But there is something fracturing behind his composure, something he is working very hard to contain, and I have known his face well enough to see the effort. Alex's question hangs in the air between us like smoke. Julian steps forward, places a gentle hand on Alex's shoulder. Hey, bud, I think I saw a dessert table over there with exactly the kind of chocolate situation you've been waiting your whole life for. What do you say? Alex looks between Julian and the stranger with the careful suspicion of a child who has inherited his mother's instincts. But the word chocolate does what it has always done, and he lets Julian steer him away, throwing one last glance over his small shoulder at the man he has never met, but somehow, in some cellular place, already recognizes. We are alone in the way two people can be alone in a crowded room when the conversation they are about to have is large enough to cancel out everything else. He's mine, Dante says. Not a question, a recognition. Low and ragged and nothing like the voice he used 7 years ago in that marble foyer. He's mine, I answer. He has been mine every single day since you put me out in the rain. Every doctor's appointment, every fever at 2 a.m, every first word and first step and first nightmare. Mine. His jaw tightens. A muscle flexes in his cheek. I didn't know. You knew I was pregnant. Silence. You threatened my child's life, I say, and my voice is completely level because I have said this sentence or versions of it in my head every day for 7 years, and it no longer has the power to make me shake. It has become instead a kind of foundation, the ground I stand on. Whatever you tell yourself about what you did, you said those words, to me, about the baby I was carrying. And then you put money on a table and thought that was the end of it. He does not deny it. I give him some credit for that, at least. From across the room, I can see a man in a dark suit watching us, short, compact, with the careful eyes of someone paid to notice things. Dante's underboss, probably. The machinery of the Bellamorte Syndicate is never far from its king. I also notice, because I have learned to notice, a second man near the entrance who is not watching Dante. He is watching Alex. The cold comes back, a different kind. Who is he? I ask, tilting my chin almost imperceptibly toward the man by the door. Dante does not turn, but something shifts in his face, recognition, and something that in anyone else I would call alarm. Don't look at him again, he says quietly. Tell me who he is. Carmine Falcone's man. He followed me here. A pause. He's seen the boy. 7 years ago, those words would have meant nothing to me, I was a girl in love with a man whose world she was only beginning to understand. I have spent 7 years understanding it. Carmine Falcone, the head of the rival family, the man who has been circling Bellamort territory for years, looking for leverage, looking for the weakness that would let him in. And now he has just found it. A Bellamort heir, hidden for 6 years, walking around in Queens, going to public school, painting with his mother on Sunday afternoons, unprotected. My throat closes. How long have you known? I ask. Tonight, he says. I swear to God, Sarah, tonight. I believe him. I hate that I believe him. But I have spent 7 years developing the ability to tell the difference between Dante Bellamort lying and Dante Bellamort telling an inconvenient truth. And this, the raw, unguarded violence of what is moving behind his eyes, is the truth. What does it mean, I say slowly, that Falcone's man has seen him? Dante looks at me, and the thing I see in his face in that moment is the thing I never saw 7 years ago, the thing I was not sure he was capable of. Fear. Not for himself. It means, he says, that your son is in danger, and you need to let me protect him. I look at the man who threw me away from my skin, the man who threatened my unborn child, the man who has lived in the architecture of every nightmare I have had for 7 years. And I say the only thing a mother with no other options can say. Talk fast, Dante. You have until Julian comes back with that chocolate.
He talks fast. We find a corner near the terrace doors, partially screened by an arrangement of white orchids that probably cost more than my rent. Dante's underboss, Marco, I will learn his name shortly, positions himself nearby, between us and the room, and I note this with the part of my brain that has never stopped watching Exits since October 2019. Dante lays it out with the clipped precision of a man running tactical math in real time. Carmine Falcone has been building a case against the Bellamorte family for 2 years, not with law enforcement, with rival families and international partners, building a coalition that would allow him to move against Dante's operations simultaneously from 3 directions. He has been waiting for leverage, something personal enough to use as a weapon, or to use as a distraction that forces Dante to split his attention. A child, Dante says, an heir I didn't know existed, unprotected in Queens. He'll move quickly, I say. It is not a question. I have spent enough years reading about this world, from the outside, to understand its logic. Within 48 hours, if he's smart. He looks at me. He's smart. The terrace door is cold at my back. The chandelier light catches the angles of Dante's face, and for a disorienting second, time folds. I am 23 again, watching this face across a pillow, believing I knew what was behind it. I blink it away. What are you proposing? I move you both tonight, you and Alex, into a Bellamorte property. Full security. Until I deal with Falcone. No, I say immediately. Sarah, I said no. You don't get to walk back into my life after 7 years and move us into your world like pieces on a board. Alex doesn't know who you are. I'm not putting him in a Mafia safe house while you deal with a rival. His jaw tightens. He breathes through his nose slowly, the particular slow breath of a man exercising patience he does not naturally possess. Then tell me what you'll accept, he says. And that, the concession in those words, stops me. Because Dante Bellamorte does not concede. In my experience and in every account I have heard of him since, he does not ask what the other party will accept. He simply dictates.
He is different with me. He has always been different with me. I made the mistake of finding that beautiful once. Now it makes me careful. I want to see what you have on Falcone, I say. All of it. I want to understand exactly what Alex is walking into. And I want Julian included in whatever protection arrangement we make. He's the person I trust, and he stays involved. Something crosses Dante's face that is not quite jealousy and not quite respect, some difficult hybrid of the two. Julian Hale is a civilian. Julian Hale has watched my back for 4 years. He stays or there's no deal. A pause. Then, fine. Julian returns then, Alex in tow, chocolate somehow already on Alex's lapel despite the journey having taken under 3 minutes. My son looks up at the tall stranger with Dante's own careful assessment. That particular way of reading a room he was born with, no one taught him. And then looks at me. Mom, are we leaving? Soon, baby. Alex looks back at Dante. Dante looks back at Alex. And the two of them hold eye contact in that terrace corner for a long, loaded moment. The man who threw away everything, and the boy who became everything, while I stand between them and try to figure out how I keep my son safe without losing myself in the process. This is the calculus no one tells you about. Not the romance novels, not the cautionary tales. No one tells you that the most dangerous thing about a man like Dante Bellamorte is not his enemies. It is the way he looks at your child like the boy is a revelation. Like he is seeing, for the first time, what he threw away. I am not moved by that. I refuse to be moved by that. I am, however, very moved by the memory of Falcone's man by the door, watching my son. And so, within the hour, 3 black SUVs pull away from the Met Gala in the rain, and Serafina Vale, who left a Bellamorte penthouse with nothing but a pencil drawing 7 years ago, returns to Bellamorte territory for the first time since. This time with a son. This time with conditions. This time knowing exactly who she is. Comment below, tell me, was Sarah right to agree? Or would you have walked in the other direction? Drop your verdict in the comments. Stay or go. The safe house is not what I expected. I expected cold, marble and steel, and the aggressive minimalism of a man who keeps his spaces empty so nothing can be used against him. I expected to feel the walls watching. Instead, warm lighting, bookshelves along one full wall, a kitchen that smells faintly of someone's recent cooking. A room off the hallway with a bed already made up in navy and white, a small desk, a lamp. Someone has been inside this space and made it livable. Recently. Alex walks through it with the proprietorial curiosity of a 6-year-old in an unfamiliar place, touching everything he's allowed to touch and some things he isn't, and eventually falls asleep on the navy bed, still wearing his dress shoes, one tuxedo arm hanging off the edge. I sit in the room until his breathing evens, take off his shoes, pull the blanket over him. Sit a moment longer than necessary, watching his face in the low lamplight, all that complicated genetics arranged into something that is entirely, completely, unreservedly mine. Then I go find Dante. He is in the main room, jacket off, standing at the window with a glass of whiskey he has not touched. The city is below us, wet and glittering, performing its nighttime indifference. He does not turn when I come in. He knows it is me. He has always had that particular awareness, a fine-tuned alertness to the specific frequency of my presence, as if I registered on some instrument no one else could read. I used to find it romantic. Tonight, I find it complicated. I sit on the arm of the leather sofa near the window, cross my arms, wait. You furnished this place, I say eventually. Not an accusation, just an observation. 2 years ago, he says, still not turning. After my wife died, I had several properties redone. This was one. I'm sorry about your wife. A pause. Don't be. It was political and we both knew it. Silence. Rain on glass. His name, Dante says. My son's name. Alessio, I say. I call him Alex. He calls himself Alex. He goes by Alex at school, with his friends, on his art projects. If you're going to know him, you call him Alex. Dante finally turns. The whiskey light from the lamp finds the new lines in his face, the ones the 7 years put there, the ones his empire put there. Alessio, he says quietly. You gave him my grandfather's name. I didn't know it was your grandfather's name when I chose it, I say. I chose it because I liked the sound of it, because it felt right. I'm aware that probably says something I'm not going to examine tonight. Something moves in his face. Not a smile. Dante Bellamorte does not do anything as simple as smiling, but a softening, a fracture in the stone. What does he know? He asks. That his father isn't in the picture, that families come in different shapes, that he is loved, thoroughly and completely, by every person in his life who matters. He deserves to know. He deserves a childhood, I say, flat. He deserves to grow up without the specific terror of knowing his father runs a criminal empire with active enemies. He will know the truth when he is ready for it. When I decide he is ready for it. Not before. Dante looks at me across the room, and I have the uncomfortable sensation of being fully seen. Not assessed, not cataloged, but seen in the way I used to crave from him and have spent 7 years teaching myself not to need. You're extraordinary, he says. Quietly, like it isn't flattery, like it's just the word for a fact. I'm a mother protecting her son, I say. Don't mistake that for something it isn't. I'm not. He sets down the untouched whiskey, takes 2 steps toward me and stops, like he is testing where the boundary is. I made the worst decision of my life 7 years ago. I know that. I'm not asking you to forgive it. I'm not even asking you to understand it. Then what are you asking? I'm asking you to let me protect him, even if you never let me near you again. Let me do this one thing right. The rain is loud against the glass. The city hums its late-night frequency 14 floors below. I look at the man I loved at 23, the man who broke me so thoroughly and so efficiently that I had to invent a new version of myself just to stay standing. And I feel, not forgiveness, not even close, but something I was not expecting to feel tonight. Pity. Not the diminishing kind, the rare kind, the kind that sees clearly and does not look away. He is a man who destroyed the best thing he had and has lived in that destruction every day since. I know this not because he has told me, but because I know his face, and grief in certain people leaves a particular signature. He has been carrying this. Good. He should carry it. But Alex is asleep in the next room, with his father's eyes and a target on his back. And I am nothing if not practical. Tell me about Falcone, I say. Everything. Start from the beginning. He sits across from me, and we spend the next 2 hours doing the strangest and most necessary thing we have ever done. We talk. Really talk. The way we never did in that penthouse, in those stolen nights, when we were too busy being consumed by each other to ask the harder questions. By the time the rain stops, I know the shape of the war we are standing in the middle of. And I know, with a clarity I have not felt in years, exactly what I intend to do about it. The file Dante shows me the next morning is 4 inches thick. He spreads it across the kitchen table while Alex eats cereal at the counter, carefully kept out of earshot by the simple geography of the space. I sit across from Dante with a coffee I do not taste and read. Carmine Falcone, 61 years old, runs the Falcone family out of South Brooklyn and has been pushing his edges north and east for a decade. 3 failed attempts to take Bellamorte territory. Failed because Dante is meticulous, and because the Bellamorte family has something the Falcone family has always lacked: documentation. This surprises me. I say so. The families that last, Dante says, refilling my coffee without asking, which is either presumptuous or a 7-year-old muscle memory, are the ones that document everything: contracts, agreements, debts, alliances. Carmine prefers handshakes and threats. He thinks it makes him untouchable. It makes him vulnerable. Vulnerable how? Because I have documented the handshakes he thought no one was watching. He pulls out a separate folder, sets it between us. I open it. Federal judges, city council members, a state senator, a deputy commissioner whose name I recognize from the news last spring, giving a press conference about organized crime reduction in Brooklyn with a very straight face. All of them photographed, documented, evidenced in transactions with the Falcone family. Carmine's leverage is borrowed, Dante says. Every powerful friend he has is a liability. If this reaches the right people at the right time, his coalition falls apart, I finish, before it can move against us. Us, he says, and then catches it. Before it can move. I note the correction. I do not acknowledge it. Alex slides off the counter stool and wanders over, bowl in hand, and looks at the papers the way children look at anything mysterious, with the absolute certainty that the mystery is intended for him. What's that? He asks. Paperwork, I say. Boring adult paperwork. It doesn't look boring. Dante makes a sound. It takes me a second to identify it as a laugh. Brief, almost involuntary, surprised out of him by a 6-year-old who has apparently inherited his mother's unerring ability to cut through performance. Alex looks at Dante with those asphalt eyes, direct and unafraid. Are you the man from the party? Yes, Dante says. Why are you in our house? This is my house. You're visiting. Alex considers this with the gravity of a treaty negotiation. Do you have any coloring books? A pause. Dante looks at a 6-year-old who is requesting art supplies in a Mafia safe house and does something I have never once seen Dante Bellamorte do in any context. He looks genuinely helpless. I'll get some, he says. By noon, there are coloring books on the kitchen table beside the intelligence file on Carmine Falcone, and my son is narrating a complicated story about a dragon who is also a detective, while Dante sits beside him with his sleeves rolled up, listening with a focus I recognize, the same total attention he once turned on me, the kind that made you feel like the only person in the room. I stand in the kitchen doorway and watch them and feel something I have no word for. Not warmth, exactly. Not forgiveness. More like the particular ache of a thing that could have been being visible just for a moment before you look away. I look away. I go back to the file. Because someone in this arrangement needs to stay focused on the actual problem. And it is while I am reading on page 63 of the Falcone documentation that I find something Dante has not mentioned. A name. Marco Corsini, Dante's underboss, the compact man with careful eyes who I clocked at the gala last night, positioned between us and the room. His name appears in a Falcone ledger dated 8 months ago. A payment, not a large one, large enough. I sit with this information for a long time. I look at it from every angle, checking my reading, looking for alternative explanations. I find none. Then I close the file and go to the doorway and look at the dragon detective story still unfolding at the kitchen table. Dante has one of the coloring books open in front of him. He is, with every appearance of seriousness, coloring within the lines. Dante, I say quietly. He looks up. I need to show you something. Alone. His expression shifts, the softness of the last hour replaced by the other version of him, the one that lives permanently behind it, the one that built an empire on precision. He comes, put the open file on the table between us, and point to Marco Corsini's name. I watch Dante read it. He reads it twice, 3 times. I can see him applying the same process I applied, looking for the alternative explanation, testing his own certainty, not allowing himself to react until he is sure. Then he sets the file down, flattens his hand on the table beside it. He is very still. I have learned that Dante Bellamorte is loudest when he is still. How long were you going to carry this before you showed me? He asks. About 20 minutes, I say. I wanted to be certain first. And are you? I am. The ledger format matches the authenticated documents in your own file. Same notation system, same date encoding. Falcone's people use the same bookkeeping across all their records. That's Marco's payment. The date matches the week you told me you expanded into the East River corridor. The week Falcone knew to hit 3 of your warehouses and got nothing because they were empty. Dante looks at me. You pulled that from memory? I've been reading your file for 4 hours. Most people take a week to pull that connection. I'm not most people, I say. I also drew the ultrasound because I couldn't afford the print, and I still got the measurements right to within 2 millimeters. I pay attention to detail, Dante. I always have. You just weren't watching the right things. He absorbs this, nods once. Then, the controlled, methodical sequence of a man recalibrating his entire operational picture. Marco has been with me for 11 years. I know. He was at my wedding. He stood beside me when my father died. I know that too. I would have trusted him with... He stops. With your son's life, I say, very quietly. Yes. And he's already told Falcone that your son exists. The stillness again. Deeper this time. He was at the gala last night, Dante says. He saw everything. He was beside you when Falcone's man was watching Alex, I say. He would have communicated Alex's location immediately after. They know where we are now, Dante. If Marco knows about this safe house, he doesn't, Dante says. This property is held under a shell company Marco doesn't know exists. I built it specifically as a contingency he wasn't briefed on. I exhale slowly. Then we have some time, I say. Not much. Enough. He pulls out his phone, types something, sets it face down on the table. Whatever he just set in motion, he set it in motion without telling me, and I note this with the part of my mind that keeps score. I need to ask you something, I say. Ask. If we help you bring Falcone down, if I give you what I found and we work together on this, what happens to Alex afterward? What does his life look like? Dante is quiet for a moment. Not thinking. I can tell the difference. Processing how to be honest about something he would normally deflect. That depends, he finally says. On what you decide. Meaning? Meaning, if you want to go back to Queens and paint murals and raise him the way you have been, I will make sure you're both protected. Quietly. He doesn't need to know the source. A pause. Or, he grows up knowing what he is. A Bella Morte. With everything that carries. The protection, the resources, the weight of it. The choice is yours. It should have always been yours. I look at him for a long moment. You really believe that now, I say. That it should have been my choice. I believed it then, too, he says. I was just too afraid to let it be true. 7 years ago, that admission would have cracked me open. It would have been enough. I would have given him everything for it. Now I file it in the correct category. Honest, meaningful, and insufficient on its own. And move forward. We need a plan for Marco, I say. And we need it before he figures out we know. Dante nods. The fallen angel face slides back into the king's. But there is something new behind it. Something that was not there 7 years ago, and that I suspect I have something to do with, though I am not ready to name it yet. Tell me, he says, what you're thinking. And for the next hour, Serafina Vale, the freelance illustrator from Queens, the woman who rebuilt herself from a marble foyer and a pencil drawing, sits across from the most dangerous man in New York and builds a trap. Not with weapons, with paperwork. The trap is elegant in the way the best traps are. It does not look like one. I draft the document myself. Dante watches over my shoulder as I work, occasionally correcting a name or a figure, and there is something surreal about the two of us bent over a laptop in a safe house kitchen at 11 at night while our son sleeps 12 feet away. The domesticity of the crisis. The plan. We give Marco a piece of information, something specific and verifiable, something valuable enough that he would not be able to resist passing it to Falcone, the location of a secondary Bella Morte accounts facility, fabricated. When Falcone moves on it, we will know Marco is the leak. More than that, we will have documented evidence of Falcone's direct operational move, which, combined with the ledger and the photographs in the file, becomes the package that goes to the 3 federal agents Dante has been quietly cultivating for 2 years. Not law enforcement as a primary move, Dante clarifies. Law enforcement as the final stroke. The information neutralizes Falcone politically before they even move in. His allies abandon him the moment they know the documentation exists. Because they'd rather distance themselves than be caught in the net, I say. Every one of them. Survival above loyalty, always. Carmine built his coalition on fear and convenience. That's not a foundation. I type the last line of the fabricated facility document and sit back. How do we get it to Marco in a way that doesn't read as deliberate? We don't, Dante says. I call him in the morning. I tell him I need him to handle the accounts facility personally, that it's sensitive and I trust only him with it. He'll verify it's real before he passes it on. He'll find enough to satisfy him. A pause. And then he'll move it to Carmine within hours. And Carmine's people will hit an empty building, I say. Not empty, Dante says. Staffed, with my people, who will document everything. I think about this, the precision of it, the patience. And Marco? Marco, Dante says quietly, will understand the terms of his retirement when I show him what we found. Something in his voice tells me retirement carries specific weight in the Bella Morte vocabulary. I do not ask for the precise definition. Some things I am not in the business of knowing. What I am in the business of is protecting my son. And the plan does that. We sit in a silence that is different from the silences between us over the last 24 hours. Less taut, not comfortable exactly. I am not sure Dante and I will ever reach comfortable, but something that has found its own equilibrium. You kept the drawing, he says. I look at him. The ultrasound. You told me you pressed it to your chest when you left. You kept it. I did. Where? A pause. The honest answer is easier to give than I expect. In Alex's baby book. First page. Dante is quiet for a moment, long enough that I almost say something else to fill the space. Then, I want to tell him, he says. Not now, not until it's safe, but when this is over, I want to tell him who I am, with you there, on your terms, at the time you decide. I know you do, I say. Is that a yes? It's a, we'll see, which is the best you're getting from me tonight. He nods. He does not push. This too is new. The old Dante pushed until he got what he wanted, and then folded what he wanted into what he called necessity. The man across from me has learned, from somewhere, from loss, from the particular education that comes from burying the choices you made, that some things cannot be taken. They can only be offered space to grow or not grow on their own terms. I am not forgiving him. I want to be clear about that, with myself and with the room. But I am, possibly, allowing for the idea that a man who breaks something precious might spend the rest of his life learning to deserve proximity to it. That is different from forgiveness. That is something much more complicated and much more real. I close the laptop. Get some sleep, I say. Tomorrow you call Marco. I want to be in the room when you do. Why? Because I want to see his face when he takes the bait. I want to know I read the ledger right. Dante looks at me with an expression I will spend a long time afterward trying to name. It is somewhere between pride and reckoning, like a man watching something he destroyed build itself back into something stronger than the original, and understanding that this new strength is specifically because of the damage, because of him. Good night, Sarah, he says. Good night, Dante. I check on Alex one more time before I sleep, smooth his hair back from his forehead, kiss the warm skin of his temple. He shifts and murmurs something about the dragon detective. I go to sleep in a Bella Morte safe house, in a city full of men playing games with other people's lives. And I sleep better than I have in 7 years. Because for the first time in 7 years, I am not waiting for something to catch up with me. I am the one doing the catching. Marco takes the bait on a Tuesday morning. I'm in the adjacent room, door open a precise 3 inches, when Dante makes the call. I can hear Marco's voice through the phone, smooth and warm with the easy familiarity of 11 years, and I watch Dante's face while he listens and thinks. This is what betrayal sounds like when it is comfortable, when it does not know it has been found. Marco agrees to handle the accounts facility personally. Dante thanks him with the warmth of a man who trusts completely, sets the phone down, looks at the 3-inch gap in the door. Well, I ask. He took it. How long? 6 hours, maybe less. Carmine will want to move fast. He's been building for 2 years and now he thinks he has an opening. It takes 4. Falcone's people move on the fabricated facility at 3 in the afternoon, and Dante's crew is waiting. No violence. This is the part I insisted on, and to his credit, Dante agreed without much argument. The crew documents, they photograph, they record. Falcone's people realize within 12 minutes that they are in the wrong place and retreat, and the documentation they leave behind in their retreat, communications, identifications, the operational chain connecting them directly to Carmine, is everything needed. I spend those 4 hours in the safe house kitchen with Alex, who has decided today is a watercolor day and has, with breathtaking confidence, started a watercolor of a city at night using every shade of blue and gray on the table. He holds up his brush and squints at it seriously. "Mom, what color is rain?" I think of a penthouse window, October, a man with slate eyes watching the storm. "It depends on what's behind it," I say. "Paint what you feel, not what you see." He considers this, mixes 2 grays and a blue on his palette, and applies them in a long, confident stroke. He is, I think, extraordinary. He did not get that from me alone. By 6 that evening, the documentation package, ledger pages, photographs, the recorded operational communications from the afternoon's failed raid, and Dante's 2 years of cultivated evidence against Falcone's political allies, is in the hands of 3 federal agents, 2 investigative journalists whose editors have been waiting for exactly this kind of sourced material, and 1 state-level prosecutor with her own history with Carmine Falcone's network. By 8, 3 of Falcone's political allies have gone offline. No statements, no comments. Just the particular silence of people calculating their exposure. By 10, Carmine Falcone's lawyers are making calls. By midnight, Marco Corsini sits across from Dante in a room I am not in and learns the precise shape of his mistake. I do not know what passes between them. I do not need to. What I know is that when Dante comes to find me afterward, he looks like a man who has set down something very heavy and has not yet decided how to stand without it. "It's over?" I ask. "The worst of it." He sits across from me. "Falcone will fight. His lawyers are good. But his coalition is already fracturing. 3 of his key allies went dark within the hour. Without their cover, he's exposed on 6 different federal fronts. It will take months, but he's finished." "And Marco?" "Gone. Handled. He won't be a problem." I accept this. The way I have learned to accept the parts of this world I chose to step into, with clear eyes and without pretending they are something they are not. "Alex is safe?" "Yes, completely. You can go home whenever you want, Sarah. I'll keep protection on the building. Discreet. You won't see them." I nod. Look at my hands. "He finished his watercolor," I say. "I know. He showed me. He called it City Rain, and then told me it was actually a portrait of a detective dragon in disguise, and I was just too old to see it." I laugh. Real, genuine, the low, melodic laugh that apparently still has the power to make a Bella Morte undone. I see it happen. The small, helpless movement at the corner of Dante's mouth. "He's remarkable," Dante says. "He is," I agree. "He's been remarkable since the first day. He came in screaming his objections to the world and then looked up at me like he was already planning something." "That's Bella Morte," Dante says, and I hear in his voice something I recognize now as an emotion he has very little practice expressing. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated, breathtaking pride in a child he has known for 48 hours and will carry for the rest of his life regardless of what comes next. We sit in the particular quiet of after. The war is not entirely over. It will take months to fully dismantle. Dante's empire will have to recalibrate without Marco, and the federal attention the package brings will require careful navigation. My life in Queens will return. Mural commissions and community center Thursdays, and Mrs. Ruiz and the ordinary sacred rhythm of a life built deliberately from ruins. These things are not yet resolved. But the immediate danger is gone, and the rest is time and work and choice. and I have never been afraid of those. I'm going to tell him, I say, about who you are. In a few months, when things are quieter, I'll do it in our kitchen in Queens on a Sunday when he's had breakfast and he's in a good mood. And you'll be there. Dante looks at me. Are you sure? No, I say honestly. But he asked why you have his eyes. He's 6, not a fool. The question doesn't go away. What about... He stops, starts again. What about us? And there it is. The question I have been waiting for him to ask since the gala, since the terrace, since the rain. I look at the man who threw me into a storm, the man who is coloring within the lines with my son, the man who built a kingdom while missing the warmth that had briefly, stupidly, brilliantly made it feel worth having. There is no us yet, I say. There is a co-parent arrangement we're going to have to figure out. There is a child who will need his father in whatever shape that can be safe and real and honest. And there is a woman, me, who has learned to protect her own heart the hard way and is not in any rush to unlearn it. And if I'm patient, he asks. I've watched you be patient for 48 hours, I say. That's not a long audition, Dante. The ghost of a real smile, rare enough that I catalog it. I have time, he says. You have time, I agree. And I have standards. We'll see how those two things negotiate. I go to Alex's room. He is asleep again, watercolor-stained fingers curled under his chin, mouth slightly open, the city rain painting propped against the lamp where he put it so I would see it when I came in. I sit on the edge of his bed, look at the painting. It is, objectively, the portrait of a rainy city in blues and grays and one unexpected stroke of gold that he must have added when I wasn't watching. I pick it up carefully, hold it in the lamplight. 6 years old. His father's eyes. My hands. His own extraordinary, insistent, unrepeatable self. I press the painting carefully to my chest. The same motion, the same hands, the same chest, the way I once pressed a pencil ultrasound drawing to myself in a marble foyer while the rain came down. That girl walked into a storm and believed it had broken her. She had no idea what she was building. Comment below, tell me, should Sarah give Dante a real chance, or has he used up every second chance a man gets? Drop your verdict below. This community decides. So, the city is still out there, doing what cities do, indifferent and electric and full of people writing their own complicated stories in the dark. Serafina Vale goes home to Queens. She paints a mural of a detective dragon for Alex's bedroom wall, and he supervises every brushstroke with the seriousness of an art director who has very strong opinions. She drinks her coffee in the morning and teaches her Thursday class and answers Dante's texts with the measured pace of someone who knows her own value and is not discounting it for the sake of convenience. Dante Bellamorte learns to wait. He is not naturally suited to it, but he is, it turns out, suited to the particular patience that comes from understanding exactly what is at stake. Carmine Falcone's coalition dismantles itself over the following months, each ally making the calculations that self-preservation demands. The federal case builds slowly, as federal cases do. No single dramatic moment, just the steady, unglamorous weight of evidence, and the way a structure built on handshakes and fear eventually collapses when someone keeps better records. The Sunday in the Queen's kitchen happens in December, when the heat is on and there is something in the oven and Alex has been fed and is in the particular generous mood that comes with being warm and full and loved. What he says after the conversation, After the tears that come not from devastation, but from the enormous relief of a mystery solved, what he says is, "I knew. I just didn't have the word for it." Which is the most Bella Morte thing I have ever heard, and also the most him. Some stories do not end with a declaration in the rain, or a rescued kiss, or a villain brought down in one luminous moment of justice. Some stories end quietly, with a painting propped against a lamp, with a child who already knew, with two people standing at the beginning of something they do not yet have the word for, deciding to find out. That is not a lesser ending. That is the real one. Thank you for sitting in the dark with me tonight, my loves. If this story found its way into your chest, if Sarah's spine, Alex's eyes, and the long reckoning of a man learning to deserve what he once threw away stayed with you, then you know what to do. Subscribe, leave a comment, come back for the next one. The darkness always has more to tell.